some head, getting some head,
Hey,
getting some head,
hey,
getting some head.
hey. All right, people. That's enough for the little intro. Get y'all minds out of the gutter, man. It's not Freaky Friday yet. All right, everybody relax. You know what? I'm actually a hypocrite. I can't tell y'all to get y'all minds out the gutter when I titled this Getting Some Head, Best Decapitations in Horror, and I played the actual song Getting Some Head. Shout out to who is that on that sample, by the way? I think that is Too Short on the sample, but that song is actually Shauna. So shout out to her, shout out to Luda and DTP, all that good stuff. But you know, we're not talking about music, people. We're not talking about music. Like I said, get y'all minds out the gutter. We're not talking about really orally getting some head. We ain't talking about that. Even though everybody loves a little head every once in a while. Just ask that dude from Beetlejuice, the dude with the shrunken head that's, waiting on his number to be called and shit like that. But whatever. All bad jokes aside, what actually made me want to do this episode was I was watching John Carpenter's Vampires, and there's a moment where I think it's Daniel Baldwin who plays Montoya. He holds up a skull to to the Padre, and he's like, nothing like a little head, huh, Padre? And I'm like, I love that line. It's so cheesy. But then I said, what are the best beheadings, decapitations? It's kind of morbid, but I'm like, what are the best decapitations in horror movies? Now, there's a lot of decapitations in horror movies. I remember when the decapitations were they were really shocking to see on screen. And I remember at some point they started to get a little more mainstream, but nowadays it's like you kind of, especially when you watch shit like The Walking Dead, you kind of expect people to get their heads cut off. Now, with that being said, I do have to give, I'm gonna get to my list. I have an honorable mention at the end here. I've got 10 best decapitations in horror, at least for me personally. I've got 10. There's a number 11 that's an honorable mention, but it just dawned on me I did not make this an honorable mention last night when I did my notes. And the fact that I just mentioned Walking Dead decapitations, I have to put this in the forefront before I get into my rankings here. I have to put as a super honorable mention, first mention, the Pike sequence in The Walking Dead. I don't remember I think it was season 9. I don't remember what episode. I think it was called The Calm Before. And that Pike sequence is literally one of the most disturbing, gut-wrenching, shot to the heart moments, well-crafted sequences I've ever seen in my life. Like, I got teary-eyed, no bullshit, during that sequence where they showed all the people get beheaded. Henry was one of them, Enid, Tara, God, what's that girl's name? Frankie, Rodney, I can't remember all the people's names. It's like 10 motherfuckers' heads on the Pike, man. 10 motherfuckers' heads on the Pike. So I have to put that as a, definitely as an honorable mention before we jump into the, best decapitations in horror. Now, I don't know. Don't quote me on this, people. I think one of the first decapitations that was that really shocked people on screen was The Omen. I'm not sure what year The Omen came out. There is a mention of that film. Or at least the remake in this list. But the original Omen, when that guy, I don't know if it's, I don't want to say it's Alan Rickman. Please don't quote me on this, people, because I think I've seen The Omen once or twice when I was a kid, but I barely remember anything about it. I do remember that decapitation sequence though. I remember that, and I remember the what was it, the nanny? She's like, "Look at me, Damien, it's all for you," and then she jumps off the rooftop and hangs herself. It's a really fucked up movie, but it just was it wasn't one of my favorites, is what I meant to say, but. That decapitation scene in The Omen, I think, was one of the ones that was really shocking to people, and people just couldn't believe what they were seeing on screen. But like I said, it became more mainstream. Certain movies you expect to see it, whether it's a zombie movie, whether it's a vampire movie, sometimes in a slasher movie. And speaking of slasher movies, our number one is actually a decapitation scene in a slasher movie. If I may say so, it's the best decapitation scene I've ever seen in my life in a slasher movie. I don't think there's a slasher movie that has anything on this first pick here. And the first pick for best decapitations in a horror film is Julius, played by V.C. Dupree, which was in Jason Takes Manhattan. That's Friday the 13th Part 8 for the uninitiated. This one, man, this is probably it's actually probably top 3 death scenes in the entire franchise for me, man. I know there's a lot, and I know the Tom Savini purists out there, or even the Martin Becker purists out there, because I know once Tom Savini stepped down, I think Martin Becker was doing the effects for, I want to say part 5, 6, and there's John Carl Buechler purists out there too, who did the special effects for part 7. But this one, man, because you just didn't know what to expect. You didn't know it was coming, and the irony that a boxer gets his fucking head knocked off by Jason Voorhees is just amazing. Shout out Kane Hodder also, who did the knocking of the block off and shit. Now, basically, for the people that don't know, I'm not going to talk about the entire movie, but the plot for this movie is Jason gets resurrected by a boat anchor that hits a power line under the Crystal Lake or some shit like that. He gets electrocuted and he comes back to life, and basically he hitches a ride on this boat and ends up on another boat, the Lazarus, that's going to New York, and it's got a bunch of high school kids on there. Jensen Daggett's the main final girl in the movie. But, Jason's on the boat killing people. Kind of false advertisement for the people that, wanted Jason in Manhattan throughout the entire movie, but it was budgetary constraints and rewrites and stuff like that. But Jason does end up in New York in Manhattan at the end of the movie. But the build up for this scene, for Julius's decapitation scene, is Julius, everybody splits up once they get to New York because they've got to call the cops and find help because Rennie's been kidnapped by 2 fucking, heroin addicts in the alleyway somewhere. So Julius gets to a telephone booth for millennials that is actually a phone that is inside of a booth that has a rotary dial on it. I know it might look like a fossil to you guys, but we're old and we did grow up with phone booths. But Julius is in a phone booth. Jason attacks him, and Julius has nowhere to go but up on the rooftop. So he goes up on the rooftop, and he's got his back against the wall because he can't get down now. He can't jump. It's too high up. So what he does is, he uses everything that he's learned boxing wise, and he just is giving Jason face shots, body shots, combos. He says use the combos, keep the feet light. He's working Jason the fuck out, like to the point where he's hitting him for so long he starts to slip all over the place. He's tiring himself out. He's punching his mask repeatedly to the point where his knuckles start bleeding, and his fatigue kicks in. Like his power bar is literally all the way down if this was a video game. So the moment this happens, Julius he swings one time and he misses. Then he swings another time, and you see he's literally got nothing left in him. He's like Batman when Batman was trying to beat Bane's ass, but he just ain't have nothing for the boy. So, he tells Jason, he's like, take your best shot, you motherfucker. And what happens is Jason grabs Julius by the collar of his Adidas sweatsuit, and Jason winds up and knocks this fucker's head off. Like, it literally spins. The director attached a camera to a Nerf football and threw that shit off the roof. So you've got this POV shot of Julius's point of view, his head rolling off the building. But my reaction to that when I was a kid, I couldn't believe it. It was like shock, but it was like I kind of wanted to cheer because I'm like, yo, this is the best fucking thing I've ever seen in a Friday the 13th movie at this point, man. I love this shit. It's fucked up because Julius is the best token black guy in Friday the 13th franchise history. I would say Creighton Duke, but we don't know where the hell Creighton Duke was for the last 8 sequels or whatever. Creighton Duke is, as far as I'm concerned, is responsible for Julius dying in Jason Takes Manhattan. So I can't give that honor to Creighton Duke. Julius is the best token black guy in Friday the 13th history. He's better than Ali from Friday the 13th, part 3, that whoever the hell that Afro extra was in Friday the 13th part 2. He's better I do like Demon Miguel A. Nunez. I do like Reggie the Reckless, and I do like Vernon Washington, the one that played Gramps in Friday the 13th A New Beginning. Friday the 13th A New Beginning had the most black folk, now that I think about it. It's one of the reasons why it's the most underrated Friday the 13th movie. This is, take that with a grain of salt when I say that, because I know during my commentary, which y'all can check out for Friday the 13th part 7, I did say that that's the most underrated entry, but part 5 has a special place in my heart, man. But nonetheless, man, Julius's decapitation scene, I had to make that number 1 because Jason, the fact, I don't know if he was just impressed by the fact that this kid is real. This is the first person who's real, since Tina Shepard, who's actually held their own against me. So I'm gonna just let him do it. I'm gonna let him tire himself out, and then I'm gonna knock his fucking block off. Killer clown style. That's exactly what Jason did. It deserves to be the first mention on this list of best decapitations in horror ever. Number 2, is way more viciously executed, man. And effects wise, it does look a hell of a lot better than Julius's decapitation scene. Now, number 2 is Santana, who was played by Jordi Mola, and this movie was Riddick. The third movie in the in the Riddick franchise. First was Pitch Black, then it was The Chronicles of Riddick, which I was not a fan of at all. And then there was Riddick, which kind of brought it back home. It felt more like Pitch Black, but they put a little more flair on it. Jordi Mola, funny thing about him is I don't know if he knows how to play anything but a villain. Just a menacing, imposing ass villain, because he was Johnny Tapia in Bad Boys 2, and he's like, listen to me, you Russian punk, I will sever your head in my mama's garden, or whatever he said in fucking Bad Boys 2. I know he was racist as fuck in that movie, but he plays the villain Santana in Riddick. I'm pretty sure that was him in Colombiana, the one that Zoe Saldana was going after. But anyway, the plot basically for Riddick is kind of the same thing as Pitch Black. That's why I said they brought it home. Riddick is basically surviving on this planet. He's being hunted by these I can't really call them police. I don't remember what the hell they are. They're like militia or soldiers or something like that. So when they find out, Riddick even says it. He's like, I'm not the one you should be afraid of. And when they find out that the threat is much bigger than Riddick, this guy that they're supposed to, detain, then they all have to work together with this guy in order to survive these nasty ass monster scorpion spider creatures. I don't know what the hell those things are, but they're nasty as shit and they're plucking people off. Now, the build up for this scene, I think Riddick is chained up in the room amongst all the soldiers. And there's one guy, I can't remember the actor's name, who's about to, he's about to unlock his shackles. And then everybody's kind of like at odds, because Katie Sackhoff wants to help when Jordi Mola, Santana comes up and he puts a machete to the guy who's trying to free Riddick. He's like, I don't think that's a good idea, or whatever he says. So the guy, he backs off. He doesn't let Riddick go. And, Dave Bautista's in the movie, Katie Sackhoff. She wants to help, and Dave Bautista grabs her. He's like, let's sit this one out. And everybody else is kind of just standing by while Santana, he's ready to kill Riddick at this point. And I think he asked Riddick something along the, don't quote me on these lines either, people, it's been a while since I've seen it, but he asked Riddick something like, any last words, and Riddick tells him, you go in the next 5 seconds. So what happened is when Santana raises the machete to kill Riddick, he kicks him in his chest, and he kicks him all the way against the room, and he falls into the wall, and the machete flies up into the air. The machete goes up into the ceiling, and when it drops, Riddick catches it. It's a really, I don't know if they did this practically. I doubt it, because the effect is just too motherfucking good. The machete falls, and Riddick catches it literally like on his foot or on his ankle, and he balances it. So what he does is, when Santana's getting himself together, standing upward rather, Riddick kicks the machete up, and he flips the machete up and kicks that shit towards Santana's head, and it goes right into his mouth and cuts his fucking head off. But he stands there at some point. Now, the impact, the sound effect is what got me. So my reaction, as soon as that shit goes into his face, I mean, it was coming, because you saw that in some of the TV spots, but they cut it at the right time when the machete is about to make impact on Santana's face. So the sound it makes, it sounds way too realistic, man. Not that I've ever seen or heard somebody get their head cut off in real life. Actually, you know what? I have too much internet research, in my high school years. Please don't ask. It was so fucking traumatizing. But the impact is crazy. There's like a big blood splatter, and he stands there for a second with the machete like embedded in his mouth and is stuck in the back of the wall. But the top of his head, here we go with the Terrence and Phillip Dial shit again. The top of his head slides off, and Riddick kicks a bucket, glass bucket over to him, and his head slides off into the bucket. And when it hits the bucket, the impact, again, it sounds real. That's one thing that I feel like a lot of horror movies get wrong, is the weight of a severed head. It's not supposed to be like paper mache. So when that head hits the glass bucket, it's got a lot of weight to it. And then everybody else has their reactions to it. They're all shell shocked. And Dave Bautista's like, yeah, let's cut him loose. And then Katie Sackhoff's like, yeah, that was 5 seconds. And Riddick tells them, like, I like to be a man of my word. He wanted to cut that motherfucker's head off. He's going to cut his head off. That is hands down. I had to put that second, because that's hands down one of the most vicious, not just entertaining or shocking, but it's vicious as shit, man, because it's like one of the most realistic decapitation scenes I've ever seen in my life, man. It's so insane. Now, number 3, this is another realistic decapitation scene. And I haven't seen this movie in a while either. So I can't be very, very specific as opposed to what cuts this guy's head off, but I can kind of break it down so that it can forever be broke. But number 3 is Keith, played by David Thewlis. And this was in the Omen remake, which came out in 2006. Now, I've only seen this movie, I think I saw it once when it came out, and I saw it again a couple years after that. Now, the only thing, I'm not going to lie to y'all, that attracted me about this movie, that drew me into this movie, was Liev Schreiber, playing the father. Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber were the adoptive parents of Damien, or I don't know if did they adopt him, or was he born that way? I don't fucking remember. The Omen was never my twist, people. Please don't judge me if I get the plot points wrong. Basically, the plot is the kid is the devil incarnate. And it's more, Damien's responsible for all this shit, but this movie plays out, and the original movie as well, plays out like Final Destination, because it's more so these accidents that are killing these people. Whether it's a dog attack, whether it's somebody getting their head cut off, whether it's it's more like Final Destination. So they really amped that up in 2006 in the remake. But that's basically the plot. There are these strange and fatal occurrences that happen, and they're all pointing towards Damien, like, your son's the fucking devil. We need to get his ass up out of here. Like, we need to kill him, type of thing. But, I was never really drawn to the remake, and it almost is, in some ways, it almost is like a beat for beat remake. But Liev Schreiber, who I think is one of the most underrated actors to ever step on screen, he was the only thing that was like intriguing to me about the movie. That was really about it. But when I saw this scene, people, like, the build up for it is the same thing as before, where the character of Keith is like, well, if you don't do something about it, I will. And he runs off, and I think he drops his bag, and he's trying to get like all his tools and stuff together. So then there's like this really suspenseful build up scene. I mean, what's coming. If you're a big fan of the original movie, what's about to happen. You just don't know how they're going to go about doing it this time around. So what happens is when he's picking up his belongings and trying to put everything back into his bag, there's these guys doing the roofing work, and I think one of the shingles fall off or something, and he slips, and what happens is a hammer falls onto this contraption. I don't know what the hell it is, but when the guy Keith stands up, this contraption swings. It slowly lowers down, but it swings. Swing low, sweet chariot. When that shit swings, that shit cuts his fucking head off so clean, so fast that his head spins. Like, it almost spins in place, and then his body stands there for a second. But it's two things that make this scene so fucking vicious and memorable. It's the way that it swings and his head cuts off and it kind of like spins in place for a second. But then it's the way that his decapitated body falls down the staircase after that. I don't know if there was like a green sleeve on top of the actor's head and they just digitally removed his head and it was an actual body that fell down the steps, or I don't know if that was like a full body cast that they molded and sculpted to make it look realistic, man. But it looks like somebody really got their fucking head cut off, and it's almost like a realistic Looney Tunes type of thing. The way, I'm telling you, man, the way his head spins is insane. Like, the only thing that was missing from that scene was like steam, like smoke coming from the stump of his neck where he was beheaded at. It's a really vicious scene, man, and I think they've been pulling that scene off of YouTube, because I remember I could find it on YouTube because it was just so insanely done. I would watch it and then I would want to find, like the making of it, how they did that scene. Maybe I should invest in a DVD or something like that. I don't know. I don't think I would buy the Omen 2006 on DVD because I'm only getting it for that one scene, for that one moment. I'm not going to buy a movie for one scene. I'm not going to do that. But that is number 3, people. Number 4, I forgot this was number 4 for a second, man. This was one that is shocking. While I say the other ones are vicious or entertaining or realistic, this is just shocking. This is shocking and realistic. It's like, it's so insanely done that it almost looks like a snuff film, without the rough little film grain from the 70s and the 60s and stuff like that. Because it really looks like you're watching somebody get beheaded on screen. And what makes it so realistic is that it's not quick. It's not one swoop. It happens over the course of a couple hacks to the neck before, it comes into fruition. But number 4 is Billy, played by Manute Bennett. And this was in 30 Days of Night, people. Now, y'all already know where I'm going with this. Any vampire fans or just fans of 30 Days of Night in general? we know what's up. We know where I'm going with this. Now, the plot basically is simple. Barrow, Alaska, they go under, nightfall for 30 days, and they're basically at the top of the world. And these vampires, the plot is very simple. These vampires come out of nowhere. They come in, set up shop, they paint the town red. That is it. That is all. They are not taking any prisoners. They're not fucking around. It's one of the most vicious vampire movies I've ever seen. It's top 5. Y'all can also check out my episode for top 5 or top 10. Pretty sure it was top 5 vampire flicks of all time. But the build up for this is there's an attack inside of the not really the construction site, but the mill. I want to say it's like a mill or something like that. And the attack is by the main guy is oh man, I can't remember the main vampire's name, the actor, the guy who's in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and he's in the number 23 with Jim Carrey. I can't remember his name, but it's basically his henchman, the one that just looks like a crazed bald animal, and he is in there attacking everybody. Now what happens is I think he bites off, or something happens to the guy Billy's hand. Now they do dispose of this vampire. They throw him up in that grinder thing. But what happens is Billy's missing his hand now. So his hand's like, Josh Hartnett and Melissa George and the one that plays the brother. They're trying to help him, but he's like pushing him off, like, get the fuck off me. And it like all this blood squirting out of his stump where his severed hand has, been cut off and all that stuff. But what happens is while he's screaming at the top of his lungs and he's bleeding out, his screams start turning into familiar screeches. So Josh Hartnett and everybody's looking around like, yo, that don't sound right. He's turning into a vampire. So he literally starts transforming as he's screaming. Josh Hartnett's not having it. Eben is his name in the movie. So Josh Hartnett grabs his trusty axe on some Paul Bunyan shit, and he takes one good swing. I'm telling y'all, the first impact, that first bit of impact, he takes one good swing at Billy's neck, and his neck just splits apart, and it kind of like flops over to the other side. And Josh Hartnett is still hacking and hacking and hacking. And they cut away at some points, but they show it a couple times where he's still hacking, trying to get past the spine. And oh, fuck. This shit is vicious, man. 30 Days a Night is unapologetic in its violence, man. And, excuse me, that's one of the reasons I love that movie. And that's one of the reasons why that is one of the craziest scenes in the entire film. Because you see severed heads in the beginning of the movie. There's a guy whose head is put on a pike in the snow. You don't see the little girl get decapitated by Eben's little brother, but you can hear it. And the sound effects, what you don't see sometimes is enough to fuck you up. The psychological aspect of things works as well. But this was the one, and I feel like they saved the best for last. Shout out Vanessa Williams. They saved the best for last purposely because that effect is so crazy. I don't know if K&B did the special effects for this or whoever, but bravo to whoever did the special effects. And that scene in particular, whoever was on set and was like, okay, I'm assigning myself, or whoever was assigned by the director or special effects department, whoever was assigned to that effect in particular needs an award for special practical effects, man. It is a gnarly, amazing ass effect. And, I hope that I never see anything like that again on screen. As much as I love it, it was so fucking disturbing to see. I had to actually go back and watch it because not only I had to figure out who the actor's name was playing Billy, but I'm like, all right, this is one where I have to watch it and just so that I explain it properly. Now, number 5 is a part of one of my favorite movies of all time and one of John Carpenter's best films and most underrated films he's ever done in his life. Number 5 is my man Descanso, played by Liam Waite. I'm not sure if he's related to the Waite guy from The Thing. There was another Waite that was in The Thing. I'm not sure. I know John Carpenter keeps it all in the family, but Ghosts of Mars is what this movie is, people. Now, I know a lot of people hate on Ghosts of Mars. I don't give a shit. Did commentary for it, by the way, if y'all want to check that out as well. But the plot basically for Ghost of Mars, the Mars Police Department is, they're sent to retrieve James Desolation Williams, played by Ice Cube. So, they end up getting more than they bargained for. They go, it's, supposed to just be a routine prison transfer, but of course it doesn't go like that, especially when you're in a John Carpenter movie. So what they do is they go to the prison and they find people with their heads cut off and all this other shit. Then we get a scene of exposition and we find out that somebody opened up Pandora's box and the ghosts of these Martian spirits possessed the colonists on this Martian planet. And, you know, they're not zombies, but they're just possessed. They're possessed. They're crazed. They got these makeshift weapons and shit like that. And one of the things that they have as their makeshift weapons are these discs. You know, these discs that they throw at people to slice them up or behead them. Now, the moment this happens to my man Descanso, it's a really great sequence because, you know, it's like we got to make it back to the other side of the colony so we can get back to safety because the train's not here. So you get this really crazy melee battle amongst the Martians and amongst the basically the cops and the robbers. That's basically what this movie is. Cops and robbers versus Martians. But, you know, you get a scene where everybody, they're not only shooting, they're not only throwing like homemade hand grenades, but they're doing hand-to-hand combat with these Martians. People are dying, but Martians are dying more than the actual humans are. But what happens is one of the guys, I think his name is Trace. I think no. Don't fucking quote me on this. I know there are 3 guys named Uno, Dos, and Trace. Now, one of them, the Indian guy, I'm pretty sure he's of Indian descent. He gets stabbed with a javelin or a spear, and you know, Descanso goes to help him. He's like dragging him back towards the door so he can save this guy, so he can salvage what's left of the team. But what happens is they start throwing the disc, and Descanso's arm literally is still holding on to the guy when it gets cut off. So Descanso's pretty pissed off about this shit. He's like, fuck it. He's like, I'm not going out like this. So he pulls his pistol off his waistband, and he starts just bucking at the Martians like, fuck you guys. Y'all took my only good arm. I'm a lefty, and y'all took my lefty. So he's like, fuck it. I'm gonna buck at y'all with the righty. And he's just letting off shots. And then out of nowhere, there's a shot of him with the gang face on. He's all me mugging, shooting off the last bit of his clip at these Martians. So then they cut back to the Martians throwing multiple discs at him, and one of them just flies past Descanso's head and cuts his shit clean off. Now, my reaction to this when I saw it was surprising because I'm like, I thought somebody was gonna grab him like, yo man, we don't have time for this. Let's go. Let's get you patched up. Let's get that arm sewn back on or patch the fuck back up or something. We got to cauterize the wound. I don't know what they were going to do, or I didn't know what they were going to do rather. And the fact that his head just is such a clean swipe, man. It's so clean. It's so well done. You know it's CG, but his head, I love that when his head gets cut off all clean the way it does. His body falls down, but the way that his arm kind of like wiggles with the gun still in his hand is just kind of funny. I know it's fucked up, people. I shouldn't be laughing at it, but it's funny. Plus, Descanso was biting off more than he could chew. Plus, he was the rookie. So, you know, the rookies ain't going to last long. Honorable mention goes to Clea Duvall as Bashira Kincaid. I couldn't put both people from Ghost of Mars in it, but she does get her head cut off as well. I just feel like Descanso's character, his decapitation was a lot more effective. And it was the first time we saw that in the entire movie. Now, number 6, people. This was one that I almost forgot had went down in horror history, but then when I looked back on it, you know, I was in my mental Rolodex, and I'm like, wait, because I was thinking of who got beheaded in slasher movies, and I'm like, Jason did a beheading. I'm like, Michael Myers did one, but it wasn't cool enough to put on the list. And you know, when he beheaded Katie Sackhoff, who gets another mention, she was in Halloween Resurrection, and he cuts her fucking head off. That wasn't even really worth it because I didn't like the way they did that. But this one, as far as a slasher goes, this was one that was so good I feel like they couldn't live up to it as far as the rest of the kills went in the movie. And number 6 is Lisa, played by Jacinda Barrett, and this was in Urban Legends Final Cut, which is the second movie in the trilogy. Fuck that third movie, it shouldn't exist. First one's pretty underrated, but fun fact about Jacinda Barrett, man, she was actually in one of the seasons of The Real World. I don't remember which one it was, but you figured I would know because I used to watch that shit faithfully. But the plot for Urban Legend Final Cut, and actually this is one of my favorite slasher movies, by the way. You know, there's a bunch of film school kids who are doing thesis films, and whoever does the best thesis film wins the Hitchcock Award. But basically, you've got this new killer who's on campus, and he's knocking off all the competition, and he's actually pretty crafty with the shit. He films murders and stuff like that. He kills people based on, you know, the urban legends that they're creating in the thesis film. But all of this shit is kind of pointed back to Amy Mayfield. I think her name is Jennifer Morrison, I think her name is. And everything's kind of pointing back to her. You've got the whole red herring aspect of everything. It's a really decent sequel, man. I feel like it doesn't get the love that it deserves. But basically, the build up for this moment with Lisa's decapitation scene, The build up for this moment is pretty interesting because she's in a bar and somebody slips her a Mickey when she's not looking. So when she's going to the back to get her coat, somebody does the whole Black Christmas thing and wraps something around her and she blacks out. Now what happens is Lisa wakes up in a tub full of ice and her kidneys are gone. Her kidneys are literally across the room in the bathroom, sitting on a fucking plate. And it's really nasty because the kidneys, they really look like kidneys. I think they really used real kidneys in the movie. But she has to be quiet because the killer's he's in the kitchen across the room. He's like putting his little tools and his knives and shit together, getting ready for some din-din. But she slips on some ice and the killer, it's not a big chase sequence, but she has to lock the door and she's like on the phone. She's like, I just woke up in a tub full of ice. And then the lady's like, yeah, honey, I don't believe nothing you're saying. Or whatever she says. She's like, yeah, don't tell me your kidney's gone. And she's like, I got Princess Di on the other line. And the 911 operator's a real bitch about it. And she hangs up on her. So what happens is it's a really vicious, not just a decapitation, but there's a really vicious moment that happens prior to that, man, because she's trying to get out of this window. She's trying to escape the bathroom while the killer's trying to break down the bathroom door. And what happens is, mind you, she's still got the incision on the side of her where her kidneys have been removed. So she's like halfway out the window. Her upper torso. What the fuck am I, from Boston or something like that? Why did my voice just get like that? Her upper torso is hanging out the window. So there's a big ass German Shepherd out there. So she really can't fuck around because she doesn't want to get her head bit off and or killed at the same time by this killer. So the killer grabs her and she's putting up a hell of a fight. But what he does is, while she's like struggling, he digs into her incision and starts pulling the skin back. It's a really nasty shot, man. Oh my God. While the first Urban Legend didn't really go super hard with the violence, this one scene alone is like cringeworthy, man. He pulls that shit back and then she's still putting up a good fight. She's fighting a good fight, trying to stay alive, like the Bee Gees and stuff like that. But is that the Bee Gees song, Staying Alive? Don't quote me on nothing, people. Y'all know I don't know what I'm talking about half the time. But what happens is he grabs her, he turns her around the opposite direction and he pulls her back into the window. But when he pulls her, she grabs the window, and when she grabs the window, she breaks it off. So there's nothing but the exposed, the broken off shard. So she's still screaming, but then she stops and her eyes widen because the killer grabs the top of the window and he slams that shit down on her neck and her head just drops to the ground. And then the dog finally starts barking and he's like sniffing it. But what makes everything even nastier, what caps this off, and this is why I said they never lived up to this kill in the movie. The killer grabs the kidney, throws it out the window, and the dog eats it. And then they just got this shot. It's like a fade out shot of the blood just dripping on the window shard. And I'm just like, ugh. That kill is so good. It's the best kill in the entire movie. And I feel like they probably should, if they were going to open strong with a kill like that, then you had to get a better kill afterwards. And I feel like nothing that they did lived up to that opening kill in the entire movie, man. Nothing at all. And, shout out to, I'm mad as shit I can't remember the director for Urban Legend 2. I will tag everybody to this. Everybody involved. The director, the writer, the decapitee. Is that a word? I just figured it was a word. The person that gets decapitated. I call him a decapitee. I don't know. Some morbid shit I'm into, people. Now, number 7. Number 7 is actually another underrated movie, which I also mentioned in my top 5 vampire movies. Number 7 is Marcus, who played by Omar Epps in Dracula 2000. Now, Dracula 2000, I know a lot of people don't like that movie, but this is probably the most tolerable, other than 300, Gerard Butler has been for me. I'm nothing against the guy. I'm just not the biggest Gerard Butler fan. I know everybody likes Olympus Has Fallen and Angel Has Risen and all that crazy shit. They like Geostorm and The Bounty Hunter and all that stuff. I'm not really. You know what? I'm lying. And I like Law Abiding Citizen. He was great in that movie as well. And I also liked him in goddamn, what's the movie with 50 Cent? There's a movie with 50 Cent and Den of Thieves. He was great in that movie too. So I can't say that I don't like anything he's in, but Dracula 2000 was, I think, the first movie I saw him in, and is definitely one of my favorites. Now, the plot for Dracula 2000, Omar Epps, like I said, he plays Marcus. Him, Jennifer Esposito, Lachlan Monroe, Sean Patrick Thomas, a bunch of them break into a museum that Matthew Van Helsing works at, and they're looking for gold and crown jewels and stuff like that, the Holy Grail. But basically what they end up finding is that there's a room there's a coffin in this room, and they think that the crown jewels are in there, but once they move the coffin, they find out that this room is heavily guarded by traps. So there's a couple people that die, but basically they take the coffin, they put it on their plane, and they awaken Dracula in the year 2000, hence the title. And Dracula goes looking for Mary Van Helsing, to take her as his bride and all this other shit. He does what Dracula does, man. He fucks a couple chicks in the midst of everything, bites a couple necks. He does what Dracula does, man. It's a decent movie. It's a good way to bring Dracula into the new millennium, I think. Now, the build up for this scene has a lot to do with Johnny Lee Miller, who plays goodness gracious, what is his name? Simon. He plays Simon. Now, Simon and Omar Epps' character Marcus have had a run-in prior to this sequence right here. They had a run-in where Omar Epps wakes up as a vampire, and then he attacks Johnny Lee Miller, and Johnny Lee Miller he's got a cross with a knife in the inside of it, so he stabs him in his eye. Omar Epps jumps out the window. He scurries away. Now what happens is he runs into Simon again in a parking garage, very empty parking garage. Of course, it's a horror movie. Why would there be people inside a parking garage? But he runs into him there. He's posing as a bum, and then he's like, "No, sorry, mate, I can't help you. I don't have any change for you." Omar Epps starts fucking him up. He's punching him. He's kicking him. He kicks him into a dumpster. Now, what happens is, Simon has this gun that pumps out these silver bullets and shit like that. But instead of that, he grabs the handle and pulls out a knife. So he stabs Marcus in his chest, and he thinks he's dead. He talks his shit while he's stabbing him too. He's like, "Never fuck with an antiques dealer." So he stabs him. Omar Epps falls to the ground, and Johnny Lee Miller's just standing there like, having his moment. But Omar Epps is slowly rising up behind him. He's growling. He's got the game face on. Johnny Lee Miller does the fucking Michael Jackson's 360 spins around with the knife so swiftly you can hear the knife like make this metallic sound. He spins around and cuts Omar Epps' fucking head off, and it flies across the parking garage and lands in a dumpster. Then his body falls. Now, I remember when this movie came out, this was the coolest thing one of the coolest things I had ever seen in a vampire movie. The older I get, the more it's like, okay, they probably could have gave them more of a fight sequence since they had it out before, but I get it. Who knows? Time constraints. Who knows what happened? But it is a really dope scene that they had that running again, and Simon finds his badass moment, and that, as if he wasn't a badass before, that was the moment where he realized, yo, I can cut people's heads off in one swoop. Yeah, I'm the new Van Helsing up in this bitch. Mary Van Helsing's about to be my wife. Drac, you better watch your ass type of thing. It's a really badass moment for the character Simon, man. I was really sad to see Omar Epps die, because I'm thinking to myself, damn, like the only movie from Dimension Films that Omar Epps survived in seemed like it was In Too Deep. And he was supposed to survive in that. But it's like, damn, you died in Scream. You died in Dracula 2000. Like, damn, he can't catch a break. Now, number 8. Number 8, man. I was actually going to do commentary for this movie a couple nights ago, but I said, nope. I said, I'm going to need a 6-pack. The same thing John Carpenter did when he wrote the original Halloween 2. But that's neither here nor there. Now, number 8 is Gary, played by Richard Bracke. I don't know if it's Richard Brake or Richard Bracke. Forgive me if I'm saying that last name wrong, but Halloween 2, 2009. Now, let me just get this out the way. There's an episode I did, which y'all can check out, that says forever defending Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I'm not going to get into why I defend it. I'm not even going to talk about why people hate it and if I care or not. That's y'all prerogative. You can do what you want to do. Shout out Bobby Brown. But this movie is amazing. I love it. I love what they did to it. And this is one of the most vicious moments in the entire Halloween. I haven't seen a moment probably this vicious. I mean, he did a couple things in the original, not the original, but the 2007 Halloween remake. But Rob Zombie really took the fucking gloves off for this movie, man. And he did it in the opening scene, the very first Michael Myers kill, whether it's a dream sequence or not. This shit goes hard in the paint, people. Now, the plot basically is very simple. Michael Myers survives being shot in the head by Laurie Strode in the 2007 movie, and Michael Myers wakes up, and he kind of becomes like a drifter, and he's making his way back to Haddonfield over the course of a couple days. So he's got a couple days to kill people for like 2 nights in a row, 3 nights in a row, before he finally gets to Haddonfield for his ultimate bloodshed. And you know, he's actually not going to kill Laurie Strode. He's going to bring the family together. And we see in Halloween 2 that Michael Myers is being led by the voice of his mother, actually the vision of his mother, rather, played by Sherry Moon Zombie. And it's her as in a ghostly form, and her white horse and shit like that. It's really trippy, you know, acid trip type of shit right there. But that's the basic plot. You know, Michael Myers coming back home to do his you know, his nostalgic standard trick or treating. Now, the build up for this scene is there's a scene with Richard Bracke and I can't remember the other actor's name, but it's a really disgusting fucking scene, man, because they're talking about, he's like, yeah, I heard about a couple of guys fucking corpses over there in Essex, and it's like, it's just this, they're talking about necrophilia and jamming your cock up a dead girl's ass as opposed to jelly. It's just real nasty shit. I really could go without the dialogue in that scene, and I watch a lot of crazy shit, I hear a lot of crazy shit in movies, but some shit is just like, come on, man, like, you're going a little too far with that. But what happens is, they're talking their shit, and they end up going head first to smashing right into a cow with the coroner van. So the one guy who's driving, his shit's all mangled, his jaw's hanging all off his face, his shit's all smashed up. He's a done deal, man. That's a wrap. That motherfucker is DOA. But Richard Bracke's character is actually still alive. Now, the way that he displays how much pain he's in, it's like he's got internal bleeding. You know, his chest cavity's all fucked up. So he's just like spitting out blood, and he just keeps saying fuck 1,000 times over and over and over. But what happens is Michael Myers wakes up, and he kicks the back doors open on the in the coroner van, and he steps out. And it's a real badass moment because it's in slow motion when they actually show him in full walking around to the side of the coroner van. And he picks up a big ass shard of glass from the accident. And Richard Bracke, I love the reaction on his face where he thinks he's getting help, but he doesn't say anything, but he looks up at Michael Myers, and his face basically says like, holy shit, you're the guy we just put in there that just got killed. So he grabs Richard Bracke by the head, and you can hear it. He starts cutting through his neck. Oh my God. I'm telling you, if they never would have even showed the insert shots of him cutting through all the tendons and the spine and all that shit, cutting his head off, it probably still would have worked just based off the sound effects alone and just you leaving it to your imagination. But they do insert shots of Michael cutting through his neck with the shard of glass, and you can hear it. Literally sounds like glass cutting through something. And then, you know, he picks his head up and he holds it, and it's a really dope ass severed head that they do. I don't know if K&B did the effects for that or if it was Wayne Toth, I'm not sure, but it's a really good effect. It's a really vicious moment. And I remember, I will never forget my reaction to seeing that. The very first time I saw Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, when Michael Myers cuts that motherfucker's head off, I got comfortable in my seat. I think I was in my stoner phase in 2009. I had a blunt, I had some beers, and I sat back. I sat back in my chair. I said, "Oh, that's what we doing? Okay." I said, I'm with it. Let's go. I'll let me put my cinematic seatbelt on right the fuck now, because I am ready for whatever Rob Zombie's about to throw at us. When you cut someone's head off with a shard of glass, first of all, not just when Michael Myers, the greatest slasher of all time, cut somebody's head off with a shard of glass in the opening sequence of a film, I said, oh my God, this is the most badass Michael Myers shit I've ever seen since Halloween 6. You know, since he was so vicious in that movie. But man, oh my God, man, I was ready. I was ready for whatever, and actually ended up enjoying the movie. Now, I don't know. We would have to ask Rob Zombie or something. Like, is there confirmation that when Michael wakes up in that corner van, is that the dream sequence, or does the dream sequence start when Laurie wakes up in Haddonfield Memorial Hospital? I'm not sure. The world may never know. We should probably ask Mr. Owl or some shit like that. Now, number nine, people, is another one of my favorite zombie movies ever made. It's crazy underrated, and I'm mad that I didn't have the appreciation back then that I have for this movie today. And number 9 is Torres, played by Tasso Stavrakis. Hopefully, Stavrakis, from Day of the Dead, 1985. Now, the plot for Day of the Dead, 1985, is simple. You know, it's basically civilians, scientists, and soldiers versus zombies. But the zombies aren't really, this was the one where we see once again really in full that the zombies aren't really the threat here. It's more so the people in this missile silo, which is where they've seeked refuge at. It's the people in the missile silo who can't really band together long enough to survive, and they can't coexist amongst each other. So the zombies are just like the added bonus as far as the fuckery goes. But it's basically, you know, they're trying to find a cure and they're trying to do science, and they find out that the zombies are actually getting smarter. The zombies are evolving, and that's basically the plot for the movie. You know, overall, it's, you know, the soldiers are the assholes, and it's really everybody else versus the soldiers, and then versus the zombies after that. So that's really what it is. Now, the build up for Torres's death scene. Now, Torres was a fucking asshole. He was a flunky for Captain Rhodes. Rest in peace. Shout out to Joe Pilato. But he was a flunky, man. I didn't like him. The only one that had redeeming qualities as far as the asshole soldiers was Steele. Rest in peace. Shout out to that actor too, because I think he passed away as well. Now, what happens is there's a character by the name of Miguel. Now, Miguel loses his shit once he gets he's already going crazy down in that silo to begin with. He's his girl's trying to dope him up the whole time to keep him calm. But what happens is Miguel loses his shit once he gets bitten, gets his arm amputated. So he takes the elevator all the way up. He smashes the controls on the way up, and he lets all the zombies through the gate. And what he does is he lays down on the elevator platform. He does the Father, Son, Holy Spirit shit. He puts his chain in his mouth to bite down on. And it's not until the zombies start biting him the fuck up. They tear out his throat. They're biting on his chest and shit like that. They're fucking him up. So he's dying at this point. So it's not until that he knows that he's literally on the brink of death that he presses the elevator button and lets all the fucking zombies into the underground bunker, into the missile silo, yo. And all hell breaks loose, because you have to have that moment in a George A. Romero movie where the zombies break in and we have to get the fuck out of Dodge type of thing. Now, what leads up, what happens with the moment that happens with Torres's decapitation scene, it takes a little more time, man. It actually takes probably either the same amount of time as it took for the guy in 30 Days a Night to get his head cut off, or it might take a little longer. I'm not sure. Now, what happens is all the soldiers go their separate ways, and they go scurrying, running, and they start pussying up when all the zombies running. I mean, as everybody would, because where are you going to go? How are you going to get away when the elevator is broken? And Torres basically is like hiding behind some like crates or whatever he's hiding behind, just running around. And then the zombies come behind him and try to grab him. So he jumps over the crates, and then the zombies try to grab him that way. And then he turns around and lies on his back, and the zombies literally are all around him. So he knows it's a wrap. So he can't do anything but scream. Now, the crazy thing about this is there's a zombie with 2 fingers digging into his eyes. Now, while he's screaming, these zombies are digging into his neck. And while he's screaming, his screams are getting more and more and more high-pitched as the zombies are slowly pulling his head off of his shoulders. They're tearing at his neck, they're pulling at his eyes and his head, and they're pulling his head away from his neck. But what makes this disturbing is the fact that his screams get higher and higher pitched. And Tom Savini actually explains it during the commentary, and he says that what would happen if you get beheaded that way, and he said your vocal cords would stretch. I don't know if he said he was taking a couple liberties with that effect and the sound effect, but he said that he would imagine the vocal cords would stretch and your voice would start to sound a little differently. And I'm just like, oh my God, man, how awful that must be. And then his body's still moving. Once they get the head off, the mouth is still moving. The mouth is still moving on the severed head. And once that happens, his body's still shaking and the zombies are still digging into the stomach. It's really nasty stuff, man. I think he gets it. He might get it the worst out of all his, all of his fellow soldiers that get fucked up in the movie to the rest of the movie, man. But it's a really, really good scene. There's actually a small little nod to that maybe in the Day of the Dead remake. I think it was in 2008. It's not a good movie, people. It's not. But, the character that plays Bub, he was human at some point. I think his name is Bud Crane. When he turns into a zombie, he tries to save the humans, and the zombies actually pull his head off in somewhat the same fashion as that. I'm not sure. That's a nod. I don't know. We would have to ask Steve Miner all that. I don't even know if he wants to talk about it. Now, number 10, like I said, there will be an honorable mention here. Actually, let me do the honorable mention right now before I get to my final well-deserved mention of the best decapitation in a horror movie. My honorable mention is Dalton, played by John Abrams in House of Wax. I think that remake came out in 2007 or 2008. I want to say no later than, but Dalton, That is a really, first of all, it's an underrated ass movie. They made it into a slasher movie. They turned Vincent Price's classic into a straightforward, really creative and really vicious slasher. And the director of House of Wax is actually directing Black Adam with The Rock, DC's movie. And the director of that is Jean-May Colette Serra. Now, the movie, the plot is basically the kids, of course, they get their wires crossed as far as movies go because they take a wrong turn and then they end up in the backwoods somewhere. But what happens is there's a literal house of wax. It's literally made of nothing but wax. But what they don't know is that the people underneath the wax, there are really people underneath these wax figures. And there are two killers in this town. There's one named Bo and there's one named Vincent, who were conjoined twins, but they were separated at birth type of thing. So what Vincent does is he wears this wax mask that's really fucking creepy. It's one of the creepiest horror movie masks. I think I'll do an episode based on that. But it's one of the creepiest horror movie masks next to Michael Myers and the Cupid cherub mask from Valentine. But basically, the kids are getting plucked off one by Vincent, and he actually turns them. They show a scene where he turns Jared Padalecki into a wax figure. They show you how he does it, the contraption he has him in, and everything. Now, what happens with Dalton is Jared Padalecki, he finds him inside the house of wax, and he just thinks he's just casually sitting at a piano. He's a little shinier than usual. And he's just sitting in place, and he's like, Wade, what are you doing, man? Everybody's waiting for you. We gotta get up out of here. And Wade does not move. So he touches his face, and he sees it's like this nasty wax type of material. So he starts peeling at his face. Why Dalton does this shit, I don't know. It's the dumbest fucking decision one of the dumbest decisions somebody makes in this movie. So he keeps peeling at his face, and he sees that the more he peels, the more he's peeling off his actual skin. And I love that Jared Padalecki can't move, but all he's doing is moving his eyes, but there's a tear rolling down his face because that shit hurts bad. You're peeling off my face, bruh. So what happens is there's a small chase scene between Dalton and Vincent. Vincent knocks Dalton down the staircase leading into the wax room. But I love this scene because what happens is Vincent's got these two knives and Dalton's laying on his back, and he sticks both the knives, he crosses them and he sticks them into Dalton's neck. And you don't really see it. You just see this shot of the knives stuck into the ground. So you see the shot's still going on, and you see Vincent walk around and grab Dalton by the bottom of his legs. And when he pulls Dalton's body, you see both the knives move, and you can hear the head detach from the body, but the knives are still stuck in the ground, crossing over each other. Dalton's head turns over to the side, but his eyes blink a couple times, and you could tell it's like they digitally removed John Abrams' body from it. You can tell, but the way his head tilts over to the side and his eyes blink for a couple last times, it's really unsettling, man. I didn't expect that. And like I said, man, I recommend House of Wax if you want a straightforward slasher and you're not a real purist of the Vincent Price original, or even if you are a purist of the original and you want something completely different, I definitely recommend the House of Wax remake. Now, the moment we have all been waiting for, people, the number 10 best decapitation in a horror movie. One of, if not, this has got to be like top 3. If we're going to narrow it down, this has got to be top 3 because this was like a defining moment in the entire franchise. Number 10 is Michael Myers, played by Chris Durand in Halloween H2O. Now, don't get me wrong. And if y'all don't believe me, there's an episode I did and it's called Why H2O Does Not Get a Pass From Me. Don't get me wrong. Halloween H2O has got so many fucking problems to it. There's a lot of problems with the writing. There's a lot of problems with the continuity. There's a lot of problems with just certain things on set. The mask, there's 4 different fucking masks in this movie. There's so many problems with this movie, but I don't hate it. I can't front like this movie is not a well-grounded film. It's certainly a lot better written than what came before it and what came after it. And that's not no diss to Daniel Farrens. I love Halloween 6, but as far as like a straightaway plot premise type of thing goes, Halloween H2O is way better. Halloween Resurrection is just a fucking mess. We won't even touch on that. I've done plenty of episodes bitching about that movie. But H2O's got a lot of problems, but this has to probably be, this is top 3 endings in the entire Halloween franchise, if not the best ending in the Halloween franchise. That remains to be seen. I have to really sit down with the franchise in order to fully say and positively say and stand on it that this is the best ending in Halloween franchise history. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Halloween Kills might have a crazy ass ending. Halloween Ends might have the best ending. We don't know. We shall see, people. The plot for this movie, they took out Halloween's 4 through 6, and they went back to the drawing board. They only are including Halloween 1 and 2 in this. So Jamie Lee Curtis has faked her death. She has changed her name, her entire identity, and she moved to Summer Glen, California, and she's the head mistress at Hillcrest Academy. Now, she's got a son, Josh Hartnett, but what happens is Michael Myers breaks into Marion Chambers. They call her Marion Whittington for some reason in this movie, but continuity, schmontinuity. So he breaks into Marion Chambers' home, he kills her, and he finds all the information. He finds the file on Laurie Strode, so he tracks her down. How Michael Myers drove to Summer Glen, California from Langdon, Illinois in such a short period of time beats the fuck out of me. I don't know. Like I said, continuity, schmontinuity, who cares at this point? I do, but we're not going to focus on that. So Michael Myers tracks her down and he does his routine trick-or-treating in the movie. And basically, the build-up for this moment, man, you've got this really crazy finale where you kind of think Michael Myers is done for, but then they do that close-up shot of the paramedic zipping Michael Myers up in the body bag. Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, knows that he's not dead. She grabs the axe off of a police car. She grabs the gun off of a policeman. And when they load him up in the coroner van, she jumps in the driver's seat and she drives the fuck off. She's like, nope, I'm gonna take care of this once and for all. I'm not sure where she was going. She probably wanted to stop at like IHOP or some shit and like get something to eat because it's been a long night. I'm not sure. But what happens is Michael Myers wakes up in the body bag, and she hits the brakes when he comes at her, and he flies through the windshield, and then she drives towards him, crashes into him. They have a stare down before she drives off a fucking cliff. And, the corner van smashes Michael Myers between a tree. So he's pinned between a tree. He's incapacitated at the moment. Laurie Strode's still very much alive. She's all banged up. She's spitting up blood and stuff like that. But she's doing all right. She's holding on for dear life. Now, what happens is she calls Michael Myers' name. He looks up and he puts his hand out to her, like on some help me. I'm sorry that I murdered everybody over the last 20 years and shit. So you get this really soft, unexpected moment where Laurie kind of just looks down and starts like whimpering. She almost feels bad for her brother. I don't know. Maybe she felt like, well, it wasn't his fault. Maybe it was the man in black. Maybe it was Mrs. Blankenship. Maybe it was just bad parenting. She doesn't know what it is. And there's a moment where she really feels bad for Michael Myers. And I remember people reacting to this and they were just like, absolutely not. Like, you got to be fucking nuts to sympathize with this maniac right now. And she puts her hand out, but they make sure, I'm telling y'all right now, I don't know if y'all heard that, but my dryer just went off and that shit scared the fuck out of me, man. It was the jump scare that I needed for being so serious and goofing off in this episode. But they make sure to not have Jamie Lee Curtis, to not have Laurie Strode and Michael Myers' hand touch. I feel like they did that on purpose because of what they did in Halloween 4, where Jamie Lloyd touches Michael Myers and she gets the touch of evil passed on to her. But, Jamie Lee Curtis kind of sighs and she gets back into her groove of things and she's kind of like looking at him like, what the fuck am I doing? And she swings that axe and lops Michael Myers' fucking head off, and it just rolls and rolls and rolls, and then it just falls on his side and just stares at the screen. Listen, let me tell y'all something. When I first saw it, it was a moment of disbelief, absolute disbelief, because I did not expect that. I thought they were going to leave it open for Michael Myers to come back. I thought that maybe he was going to break free and they were going to have another fight and it was going to be like another mini third act fight sequence or something. I didn't know. I did not expect Jamie Lee Curtis to swing that axe like a baseball bat. Like she was going for a home run with that shit. Lopped Michael Myers' entire head off. Mask still on. You see the little tendons peeking out the bottom of the mask, and then you see little blood spurts come from the body when they're playing the Halloween theme, and Laurie Strode is just like, she's just breathing really heavily, almost breathing heavily like Michael Myers with the axe in her hand, and she's kind of got this moment of like freedom, like this weight has finally been lifted off her shoulders. She's finally got rid of the boogeyman. Everything's finally over. The nightmare is finally over and done with. And I remember, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, man, speaking of sympathy, when Michael Myers, when it was all said and done and the credits rolled and the Halloween theme really kicks into gear, I'm thinking to myself, like, as a kid in 1998, I'm thinking to myself, like, so Michael's going to be all right? Like, we're going to have another one, right? And of course there was a contract. Mustafa Akkad knew that they were going to do another one. I'm thinking, and I remember when me and my mother saw this, I remember that we said the same thing, and she said it. She's like, well, they'll find a way to bring him back. Somebody will attach his head back on. And I used to think like, yo, they're going to go full blown supernatural. They always alluded to the fact that Michael Myers may or may not have been supernatural in the series. This was their opportunity to go full blown supernatural instead of insulting our intelligence as Halloween fans and doing a piece of shit like Resurrection. But I was just in such disbelief. I was like, yo, Michael Myers, like, is it going to be a post-credit sequence? Michael Myers gets back up and puts his head back on. What's happening? Is he going to be all right? Are we getting another one? I just couldn't believe what I saw, man. It was such a ballsy move for the series, man. Now, had they not done Resurrection, it would have been interesting to see what direction they would have went in. Following up H2O. I actually have an idea for that. It was an episode I was going to map out. I'm not sure if I want to do it. I don't know. But there's so many liberties they could have taken after that ending, man. But what I would have given to been a fly on the wall at the premiere of Halloween H2O and just listen to the audience erupt and cheer and scream at the top of their lungs when Jamie Lee Curtis cuts Michael Myers' head off, man. It is one of the greatest moments in slasher movie history. Not just in Halloween franchise history, but slasher movie history. It's one of the best moments ever in horror movie history, man. Ever. It was just such a sucker punch, because you think it's going to be some type of twist or some type of way Michael evades Laurie Strode again or evades getting killed, but nope, she cut that motherfucker's head off and said, I am done with this shit altogether, man. Now, let me just say this. I know there's some that I missed. I definitely wanted to put, there's a Decapitation and Hatchet 2 that I wanted to put in there, but I'm saving that for an episode where I talk about the worst cock block moments in horror movie history as well. And the Decapitation and Hatchet 2, for my Hatchet 2 fans, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about, that scene in the woods. But I'm saving that for that episode in particular. I feel like it's way more, it goes better with that episode as opposed to this one. I didn't even want to put it as an honorable mention, but clearly I kind of just did. But I kept it narrowed down to 10, man, because I feel like any more than 10 mentions of decapitations in horror movies, people would start to be like, okay, maybe there's something really wrong with Tudor, man. Maybe there's something really not, this guy screws might be a little looser than we thought. But it's like come on, man. Y'all, if y'all listen to this, then y'all just as crazy as I am. If y'all were listening to this and were like, oh, I know what decapitation scene he's about to talk about, I like that one too, then y'all in the same boat as me. We got the same matching straight jackets and the same padded cell. We are all roommates and crazy as shit horror fans, people, and I'm cool with that. I'm actually fine with that, man. I love the horror fans out there, man. And speaking of which, horror fans or comedy fans, whatever you enjoy me, whatever genre you enjoy me talking about, man, y'all know where to go, man. Y'all can follow the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Podbean. Shout out to Anchor. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Romero Tudor. Shout out to the Facebook movie group, the Cinemaniacs, and shout out to the Facebook movie group, the Horror Virus. And last but not least, so humbly, so gratefully, shout out to the Tudor reviewers, the listeners, the lovers, the supporters out there. I hope I didn't freak anybody out by talking about decapitations and all of that. Y'all should know by now, horror is the foundation in which this podcast platform is built on. I talk a lot about comedies and actions and sometimes dramas. I need to do more rom-coms. You know, I asked somebody one time, I said, what type of movies do women watch? Like the majority of women, because I need more, every time I check the numbers, I look at it, there's more men than women that listen to the podcast, which is fine, but it's like, I would love to balance it out. And to be honest, I think I've said this before, I would love to have more women listen to it than anything, because women get the word around faster. And women, they're way more convincing. If women tell their husbands or their fiancés or their boyfriends, babe, I'm listening to this podcast, you want to listen? It's like, all right, cool, whatever, I'll do it. Anything for you. But, I need to find out like what type of rom-coms I could do. I need to get around to doing like Malcolm and Marie and Cruel Intentions and Boomerang and Love Jones and Poetic Justice and stuff like that. All the rom-coms I need to really get around to, man. Have Plenty is another good one. And I don't know, maybe The Notebook. I'm actually saving that for a special occasion. Don't judge my life, man. I actually like The Notebook. It's a fucking amazing movie. I talked a lot of trash about it, but now that movie made me want to expand my horizons into romantic dramas and romantic comedies and stuff like that, because that's definitely top 5, hands down. But Yeah, man, we'll get a little more versatile. You know, I'll tone it down and stop talking so much horror. The horror's not going anywhere, but I'll switch it up, stuff like that every once in a while, man. One thing I don't want to do is really overwhelm people too much with a particular topic or a particular drama. Now, granted, a lot of people that tune in, they know they expect me to talk about horror. So when I talk about another genre, it's kind of left field. But that's all good, man. As long as y'all are tuning in, man. And y'all know the love and support y'all show me. I show it right back to y'all tenfold and then some. So with that being said, people, yours truly, Romero Tudor. Another episode of Tudor Reviews in the can. I'll check y'all on the next one.